Oh, did I take my card? Yeah.
I feel like saying the 4 words of deep welcome to Anisha Hachli Harbe. That's not too bad. So I'm going to tell them that I saw you, I called you, tried to get you.
No, I'm going to go up and tell them.
Did you see Gabrielle? I can't take this,
Very easy to get in now.
So far, very nice. Nice
He greases up his hat. That's it. Oh, you're on camera. Look, you see that over there? Do you have anything to say to the camera?
You need to be rescued yet?
He's doing fine. He's doing a whole lot. He doesn't want to leave.
Camera. How are you? How's Brandeis this year?
I saw it from the top line. Just finishing up.
My pediatrician, put me in touch with a vet who does all this stuff. Tatsy.
Let me get the
I was curious. I used to run at Maryland. I don't think so, but
oh, maybe. You've had a nice
I got one film left. So anyway, I was instructed.
You missed stuff.
Stop chewing.
Wait.
Okay, are you finished?
No.
Or I am correction, I can't.
Okay. Now.
Good. Very nice. Well, see, I grew up
You need to get your head out a little bit. Your head was chopped off. Right there. There you go.
Don't you do anything but nice things. If you want to play with action, don't nice. You got a big one. Don't get drunk.
Some people with old eyes, they got the blood so they can see.
You're a lucky girl. You better hurry up.
Hey,
Probably one of the most important announcements. I've just been informed that lunch is just about to be served. So if you all will sit down, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and relatives, and Uncle Mickey. On behalf of Mimi and Marcia and David, I'd like to welcome everyone to this happy event, and so glad everyone could come. And we'll be doing a lot of dancing and music, and we'll show you some pictures of the good old days and tell some stories. I don't want to spend much time on a toast, but it's a very happy event, and perhaps no one said it better than earlier today, my Uncle Joey, when he said, "It's really a day." So let's give a toast to my parents after 50 years. They're wonderful people, and 50 more.
You're never going to make 50 more.
You never know. And to do the motzi on the bread, grandson number 1, as Leon says, he calls all the grandsons 1, 2, and 3. I think he's forgotten their names. And so number 1 will do the motzi. Where are you? What's your name? Okay. Do you want to cut it, or do you want me to cut it for you? Okay.
Turn around.
Turn around so they can all see you. You know what to do? That's the wrong screen on this one. Nice and loud so they can hear you in the back.
You ought to stop for the next of the table.
Okay. Enjoy your lunch.
I wanted to get to know his name. I wasn't going to give him his...
Okay, guys, if you guys want any covers, drinks and stuff, what you do that later, okay?
Where are you?
It's starting to get good.
I don't think he's studying anything.
Andrea, I only know who I am and what is
I'm impressed, Aunt Rose. You got more strength than the crowd. All of us put together. I was saying, you get a standing ovation.
Just the two of you.
This is very exciting.
Let me get them out beyond that.
And it was one second.
Get me out of there, Rose.
We'll get them. There you go. One more. Okay.
Wait, there's another one.
There's
Have a great
There you go. There you go.
Exciting interruption here with love. It's working. I know it's working. Hi, it's my turn. I used to be the youngest Blitzer in my family, and then Bobby and I got married, and I became the second oldest child in the group. I'm being the youngest of both sides. I was the youngest Blitzer of my generation. I was the youngest Meyer of my generation until my husband and Marcia came along, made me into an old-timer. I especially want to welcome Aunt Anna and Aunt Rose, who just arrived from another Simcha. Alice, my cousin Alice, her son and daughter-in-law became new parents. Alice became a grandmother in the bris this morning in New York, and somehow my young aunts figured out how to get to a bris in New York and I can't say it. I am very loud. It's echoing back. You'll just have to listen. But they somehow made it to a bris too loud. A bris in New York, and somehow got on the train and made it to this simcha as well. And I would like to welcome them and everybody else to our party. As Bobby alluded to a little earlier, we have a fair amount of entertainment today besides the wonderful music that we have today. As you know, we had asked people to send us presents, various vignettes, which I have received many of these. We have no time to read them all here, but some of them from people who couldn't attend, I wanted to read a few of them from those people. I would also welcome, after I finish, other people who are here who have brought their vignettes or who have something to say. It seems among these functions everybody has something to say, especially about my parents. To be able to get up and say a few words themselves. But the ones that I'm going to talk about today are people who are not here, who are old-time friends of my parents. And people characterize my mother and my father very differently, but indeed there was a theme. I can't tell you how many times my mother was referred to as Mrs. Hadassah in Fundraiser, and my father referred to as the quiet scholar who somehow gets everything done. I'm going to read a few of these. This is from somebody who couldn't be here. I'm going to not give names until the end so my parents can guess who's writing about them. I know you both from the beginning of your courtship, and it is so great that you have made 50 years of wedded bliss. I thought many years ago that you would never make it. You have such different personalities and interests. Yet they say opposites attract, and here is the proof. Pauline was always the most outgoing person with a need to be with people. By the way, I picked ones that I thought characterized my parents well. Leon was quiet and studious and didn't seem to need the active social life she did. Pauline would want to go dancing, Leon would want to study the stars. I have come to believe that Pauline and Leon are alike in other important things. They are both the most responsible, caring, and giving people I know. This is what they have in common: commitment. To the most unlikely couple to stay together for 50 years, Viva la Différence, your friend Josephine. Who was my mother's roommate, I think, in college. And I'm trying to do these, thank you, Mark. I'm going to do these from New York. Finally it arrived, and there was Leon, young and crippled with arthritis. There was a stretcher waiting for him when he got off the train. This was in the late 1930s, and miracle of miracles, within a year the boy was on his feet and attending college. So you can understand my emotion to receive this news, but also I am 90 years old and past my traveling days. I will be there in spirit, and God's blessing be with you. Zeal Smith. And this is a small story that he sent to me about my parents. He said Leon came to me one day saying he wanted to buy a gift for his fiancée. Since he was inexperienced in selection of intimate female attire, he asked if I would go with him to one of the large department stores in Tucson. The implication was that since I was a married man, I would know all about the intricacies of such a purchase. As two men together in the women's apparel section of the store, we soon attracted the attention of a clerk. Leon told her that he wanted to purchase a dressing gown. The clerk asked the pertinent question: what is the size of the lady? Leon looked at me, the presumed expert. I looked the other way. We were at an impasse. To us, all girls were the same size. The clerk then suggested we should look over all the women going by on the nearby aisle. And when we thought one of them was the right size, we give her a sign. That seemed like a good idea, so we started eyeing all the passing females. Of course, this might have been embarrassing if we had been caught, but finally we gave the clerk a nod. The scheme seemed to have worked, and Leon bought a negligee. Some years later, after they were married, of course, I was in the Blitzer home, and I asked Pauline if she still had the dressing gown. Yes, of course she had it. And if you knew my mother, she has everything from those days. And she brought it out. It was obvious even to my all one-size girl's eyes that it was much too large. Actually, it would have been about right for a very pregnant woman. Maybe she did wear it when she was pregnant. Since this day, I've avoided shopping for females, and I suspect that Leon has too. Congratulations to both of you, Dr. Franklin Roach. But he did want me to relay one that Uncle Leon told us when he was dating Aunt Pauline. And Uncle Leon took Aunt Pauline to her home, and Mr. and Mrs. Meyer were sleeping, so my aunt and uncle wouldn't put on the light, the apartment being so small. Aunt Pauline left Uncle Leon in the kitchen for a moment. Uncle Leon was thirsty, and there was a glass of water on the counter. Now, all the cousins have heard this in the past. Convenience. He drank and suddenly was bitten. Yes, of course, the false teeth were soaking overnight in the glass. Whose teeth they were, I'm not even sure we ever found out. What the moral of this is, everyone can decide for himself. May you live to celebrate 120 anniversaries. Much barachot. Love, Mary, Louis, Baruch. Yaakov, Narva, and Ariel. Full professorship. I stopped by their house to congratulate him. The door was always open, as was the custom in Tucson in those days. With my usual chutzpah, I asked Leon if he had received a financial promotion as well. He said, of course, $150. I said, that's not too bad for a monthly increase. Leon roared, you must be kidding, it's for the year. And this, of course, is from Roz and Henry. And that Bobby was, and he notified his parents that he would bringing home a friend with him to stay overnight. This good Jewish mother that Pauline was, the first question out of her mouth was, is he Jewish? Tired of dealing with those questions, Charlie refused to answer. And as my parents have known, those questions have gotten both of us to refuse to answer many a time. Thus, Pauline assumed that I was not. We drove down to Los Angeles. We arrived at Pauline and Leon's summer home late that night after a party and awoke the next morning to meet Pauline and Leon. After greetings were exchanged, Pauline suggested that rather than going to a party with her niece Linda, I should be fixed up with Ronnie. It was later found out that Ronnie St. James was a good Catholic girl who Pauline determined that I should be dating since I was not Jewish. Although I have not had to consult with Pauline about my dating situation in a long time, she has always been available for consultation on any medical problems with which I am dealing. After I decided to pursue graduate studies at the U of A, Charlie kindly offered me a place to stay with his parents while looking for a permanent home. I took Pauline and Leon up on that, and they took me into their house. They made sure I was always well fed, invited me to spend each Shabbat and holiday with them. Leon did his part in inviting me over for legendary vegetable pizzas and ice cream floats. Although I often forgot to wear my coat when it was cold at night, Pauline would never forget to remind me to do so. Leon always set an example of a calm and kind person who was able to accomplish things with a flair but without a lot of commotion. This added to the example set by my father, and I'm sure influenced the way I deal with others today. And of course, us will identify with it. Surrogate grandparents and self-proclaimed surrogate parents, advisors and confidants, sometimes not even at our request, host and hostess par excellence. I haven't had to make my own Seder yet. Caretakers of our family, images of Bert and Leon walking along the beach, donors to all causes, spelling bees, cartwheel contests, endless school fundraisers. Jewish Mother Award winner for the best messages left on an answering machine. Marta, it's raining out. I'm sure you want to have the children out in this weather. Marta, it's so late already. I'm sure you wouldn't have the children out so late on a school night. Marta, we haven't heard from you. I can only assume you must be out of town, but didn't tell me. Pauline and Leon, has been a tremendous privilege for us to be close for these 23 years. To enunciate what is famous as Blitzer's first law. It is well known in science that no greater respect can be accorded a scientist by his conferees than by naming a law after him. In Leon's case, the law that bears his name is of fundamental significance, and the University of Arizona Physics Department is probably better known for that than any other achievement. What Leon taught the rest of us may be stated as follows, and most of you know this: never let anything interfere with your sweet disposition. Thank you for that. The world's a better place for that contribution to civilization. Indeed, it is a better place because you and Pauline have graced it with your kindness, your gentleness, and your love for one and all. This is from the Bashkins, which are close physics department friends. There are, of course, tens and tens more of these. I'm just going to end with a poem by another couple in Tucson. We in Tucson, way out west, would like to pass a law. When you honor the city's best, please, not in Baltimore. We too would like to celebrate and wish we could be near to enjoy with you this special date for friends we both hold dear. Leon is our erudite professor, and he is at his peak, appreciated, oh yes sir, when he gets up to speak. Pauline works with all her heart for Hadassah that she holds dear, and Hadassah also does its part by selecting her Ima of the Year. So we who are so far away send greetings from coast to coast. We hope you have a wonderful day. Include us when you drink your toast. And this is from their friends, the Gerbergs. I'm going to...
Just a little something. Sales lady par excellence. It was in the 1950s when my family was living in Tucson. One night, Aunt Pauline took me with her on one of her usual business trips. Just driving anywhere with my aunt in those days used to be an adventure. But on this particular night, we crept down a dark dirt road, heading for a shack around the bend. Aunt Pauline knocks, and we are led into a family of Hopi Indians. No shoes, ragged clothes, sparse furniture. In the next 15 minutes, Aunt Pauline tells these people the value of an education, how important reading is, how important starting children on a certain learning track is, how the books can be paid out over a period of time, and how they get a bonus gift. What can I say? Another World Book Encyclopedia sold.
Mine is not quite as interesting as hers. I'm representing my family back in California with a story that you may not know, that Aunt Pauline and Uncle Leon were responsible for my wife Carol and I meeting. She fixed us up. And I will tell the story quickly because the postscript is better than the real thing. But basically my wife was attending at a convention of Hadassah where her mother was speaking, and Aunt Pauline was visiting from Tucson. So she sees my wife and says, "Where do you go to school?" She said, "I go to Berkeley." She said, "Oh, I have a nephew at Berkeley. Here, I'll give you his number, you'll call." And she says, "No, I don't call men. I don't call boys." She said, "Good. I like women that don't call boys. You give me your number." Well, it seems that in the period when this was going on, Aunt Pauline was also directing her about where to move the chairs for the event that was taking place. Anyway, so I find out that my wife had given her family's number in LA, both of which were unlisted. So when Aunt Pauline comes to get the numbers, and I'm coming to visit from Berkeley to see them on a way back from a trip from Mexico, and Aunt Pauline managed to get the number, not because she remembered where she put the piece of paper, but she called Regional Hadassah to get the number because she'd lost the piece of paper. Uncle Leon, I said, "Uncle Leon, do you think I should call this girl?" He said, "I don't know, you got nothing to lose." So I put the piece of paper in my pocket. And at the time that I met my wife, it was 1967, there were 23,500 people at Berkeley. And we were taking a seminar class in the journalism department, and the teacher had everybody introduce each other. And sure enough, the young woman sitting next to me was Carol Goodkin. And I opened my wallet and said, "Is this you?" She said, "Where did you ever get my number?" Anyway, here's the postscript, because it's an anniversary story. On our year anniversary, we called Aunt Pauline and Uncle Leon to thank them for introducing. And Aunt Pauline said the following: "Don't thank me now. Anyone can be happy after a year. Thank me in the crisis years, 7, 15, 22. Happy anniversary, Aunt Pauline and Uncle Leon.
Well, I guess 50 isn't a crisis year. I'm Roy's sister, Lois. And Carol, my sister-in-law. I don't know if 50 is a crisis year, but it certainly is a wonderful one, and I'm here to celebrate with Aunt Pauline and Uncle Leon. And Pauline and Uncle Leon have played critical roles in my life, too. I do remember as a child knowing that if Aunt Pauline and Uncle Leon were in New York and we were going to visit, it was because Aunt Pauline had sold more encyclopedias than anybody in the entire world, and that was annually. But on another note, it's because of Aunt Pauline and Uncle Leon that my mother is living in Tucson, Arizona. In about the 1950s, Mother started going out there to vacation, and the reason was because Pauline and Leon were there. So when I went out to Tucson, after Mother moved there in, I think, the 60s or 70s, 73, I expected to see one huge golf course, which was primarily the reason why my mother moved. Well, Tucson is beautiful and wonderful, and I visited there many times since, and my mother has lived there since, and now Aunt Pauline and Uncle Leon play nurse and doctor and rabbi and minister to my mother, for which I am grateful, and I bring you her love and good wishes as well from all of us.
Mark, say something, Mark. Hey, Mark.
I have another taker.
And there are certain people, I think, that we get exposed to during our lifetimes and this is my grandchild, Maxie. There are certain people that become inscribed in our hearts and minds forever. In 1958, we were visitors in a strange land. We came to Tucson with 2 sick children. I get a little emotional because we knew no one, and my wife arrived not knowing where to go or what to do, and guess who took them, adopted them, and found a place for them to live, and helped get them settled, and did everything anyone could ever do as if they had known them their entire lives. My kids would never have probably eaten sour cream in Tucson, Arizona, if it weren't for Leon and Pauline. We probably would never have ended up with 3 sets of world books if we hadn't been in Tucson, Arizona. During the 3 years that we were there, of course, Pauline and Leon became our dearest, dearest friends. We will love them always, because I don't think anyone ever is more appreciative to anyone else when they've given of themselves as they gave of themselves to our family. It's a beautiful story because they're so dear to us, and the contribution was really so great. So Pauline and Leon, on this wonderful day, we will always love you and hope we have many more symphonies together. Thank you.
Yeah, I see it. So fast. I don't know the name, honestly.
The great-grandmother.
The great-grandmother. It was a boy.
Oh, how do you know?
We know, we heard, we found out.
I don't know the name.
I should introduce this. This is my Aunt Rose.
All I remember is that they
Wait.
said, Ben Yosef died. Wait. That's my nephew. My son's name is Yosef Ryan. And all I heard, but Steve tells me his name is what?
Nathaniel Simcha.
Nathaniel Simcha, are you sure? That's what he told me. Yay! But you know, we expected to come with the whole family. My daughter became a young grandmother. The baby was supposed to be born 3 weeks ago, but he was born just last Sunday. So of course I said maybe I'll come, maybe I won't. And instead of the bris taking place 8 o'clock in the morning, they called for 10:30. The mail came after 11. Yes, and I had the taxi called for me at 11:30. But the taxi was there at 11:10. I made believe I didn't see him. He didn't bother me, I didn't bother him. My son-in-law apologized that he couldn't take me that he wanted to take me to the airport. But I said, please don't, you stay home. When we got to Newark, which it didn't take too long to get there by taxi, I realized we could make an earlier train instead of a 12:33, where I had reservations. We were able to make a 12:13. So there at the ticket counter, there are lines all over, and some windows are closed. So I went right over. Would you mind if I go ahead and read? All right. The one man said, okay. I like you too. Then the next one said, I'm in a hurry also. My train is leaving at 12:01. And here it was about 11:50. About 11:50. So I said, yes, but look, May I tell them your age? Oh, you're so beautiful, you may. I said, she's 93 years old. She says, all right. And I said, I'm no chicken either. So he said, all right. She can't wait. You want to say something? Then I went up, showed us where to get the escalator. We went up the escalator. I look at the ticket. It says Washington. But I'm going to Baltimore. So I went over to information and I said, I want Baltimore. This says Washington. He says, you'll have 11 minutes. Go down and change your ticket. So I did. So I had to go down, and you sit over here. I went down, changed, went up to the counter. So somebody again was there, but not the same ticket agent. So I said, I want Baltimore. This says Washington. She says, well, you must have said Washington. I said, no, look at the paper. I gave her a paper on which I had the schedule, which, by the way, the first ticket agent threw away. So she said, all right. And I gave her my credit card. It took a little time. I said, how much time do I have? She says, well, you have a few more minutes. And we went upstairs, and again I had to pull around. So wherever I went, then it came to getting a taxi over here. So you know what happens at airports, at taxis? Each one has to go in line. So I went way over there and went to the taxi driver. He said, lady, you have to go up there. So I went over there, and the person says, no, mister, look at the lady. She can't wait. So he said, I'm sorry. So then he says, all right, ask them. So Anne said to this fellow, do you mind if I go ahead? He says, no, I don't mind. So we went, and then we did him a favor. He was going to the ball game, and if he asked if he could have a ride with us. So he rode with us, and we had a wonderful time coming here, and thank you very much for the reception. I'm only sorry that we couldn't come earlier and the others couldn't be with us. Mazel tov, and Mädchen to your 75th.
Friend of ours, oh, you don't know that? She's been, nobody saw her.
For your anniversary, one of your...
Where is Kenneth? Where is Kenneth? I thought you said Kenneth and Jacob and Mark. I'm so glad dear Abby announced that it is no longer cricket for the groom to cut the cake and put it in the bride's face. I'm taking my glasses off. Where's Ken? And where's Mark?
Mark's here.
Come on, Mark. Yeah, if you move away
Better put
now.
Mark on this side.
Okay.
Oh, look over there, Mark.
Ah!
Yeah, look over there, Mark.
Okay, take the knife. Okay, here, I'll take the knife. They're all helping.
Oh, good. Okay.
Thank you.
Mark. Do it.
Sing it.
Am I supposed to cut now?
Yeah, cut. Hey.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time for audio visuals.
The picture from which I took this says Molly on the back of it.
Molly owns the picture.
We researched this. We have found that this picture is claimed as the baby picture of 54,000 people living in Brooklyn and one in Nepal. That's
definitely.
on to our couple.
Where is the picture? At Mimi's.
It's here. Pauline. Here's Pauline as a child. Yes. Even then it was known that Pauline would be sent away at some point in her life. They gave her horseback riding lessons, as you can see, knowing that one day she might end up in some god-awful place like Tucson, Arizona, or something like that. Right? Leon's parents, Jacob and Rivka. Leon was a special child. He had lots and lots of fathers and mothers taking care of him. Look how happy he is there with all those surrogate parents. You'll see him again. You'll see him again. Leon was an exceptional student. This is taken soon after a teacher asked him, what did Einstein say? Leon said E equals mc squared. The teacher was talking about Seymour Einstein in the first row. Leon went to the principal's office right after this.
Too smart even then.
It's not widely known. Leon went to the University of Arizona on a baseball scholarship. It appears that the biggest problem was his LL Bean footwear, which made him probably the slowest player in the game there. Pauline also made the scene, the hypoallergenic Tucson scene, a literal breath of fresh air. Now, most of you know, Leon almost got kicked out of college for unseemly behavior. He and Pauline were caught in a laboratory alone on a Sunday afternoon, supposedly doing a science project. Right. I believe them. I believe them. No, it was supposedly counting clouds. And I've read the correspondence. I've wondered a couple things. How can you count clouds indoors? But I believe, whenever I've been to Tucson, there are no clouds. But I still believe them. And on the other hand, as we all know, Leon's career has mostly dealt with the intensive study of heavenly bodies. But I believe them. There was nothing bad going on at that point. Yeah, they helped each other through college. Leon helped Pauline through singing, somehow or other. And in return, Pauline helped Leon with differential equations. Now, most of you have probably never seen the time in his life when Leon had a beard. Like all college guys, he decided to be wild and crazy and grow a beard. So if you look at this next photo, you have to look carefully, but you can see Pauline and Leon. Now, eventually Leon gave up baseball and became a physicist. Hey, you got to look carefully. Sorry. Got to pay attention. He became a physicist. wide known for his demonstrations to his classes. Contrary to popular rumor, Chernobyl was not his fault. You know, 3 Mile Island may have been, we're not quite sure. But most of you don't know that Leon had appointments in 2 departments. He also taught sleeping to all of his kids and to his family, but most importantly to his students. We're going to show you Leon teaching an undergraduate class. Now this is Leon teaching a graduate class. There was no bet. Leon could do a tutorial.
That was the boys' wedding. That's the wedding. Boys' wedding. He had a school board meeting, but he said he was only listening.
Yeah, he says he was listening. Right, right, sure. Back to 1942. There's Leon in his gangster outfit here. Here's Molly and some bum she picked up along the way. Off on the honeymoon. In the limousine.
Where did they get all?
California, Tucson. Babies, yes. Now, as you know, Tucson in those days was a small town, small Jewish community. As you've already heard, they did take in strays from time to time. Here's a group from Philadelphia. They were looking for a kosher cheesesteak. They never quite found it. Mr. Meyer's 50th. Leon was a great teacher. He taught these people sleeping, as you can see.
That picture, the end of their 50th wedding. We can post it if you like.
Family get-togethers have always been important.
That's Molly's 25th. That's, there's Red, there's Ross, there's Roy and Lois.
The Papas. The Papas. Looking a bit more mature. I like that kind of Bride of Frankenstein hairdo, you know? Is that gray hair we begin to see? Oh, another wedding anniversary. Pauline is singing an aria here. Oh, kids are grown, out of the house. Just the 2 of them. Now everybody looks exactly like they did in 1942, right? Leon's attempt at late life triathlon training.
He fell off the bike.
Retirement brings pinochle. Pauline is Ima of the Year at Hadassah. And they haven't changed, have they?
Oh, that was Arkansas.
Well, let's get away from that.
And that's your show.
There you are, Aunt Molly. You look good there.
And Bobby and Mimi go back many years. In fact, I was in the picture, so were my parents and my brother.
Our family acquaintance goes back to when Leon was a student, but in my case, I think I first became aware of him when he came back from Caltech to take on the underpaid and underprivileged professorship at the University of Arizona. And although I have not lived in Tucson for more than a few weeks at a time since 1947, I've always regarded among the high points of my periodic visits going to visit Leon and Pauline and spending as much time with him as I could. And I like to think, though we're far removed in space, that we remain very good friends, even though contact is infrequent. I've been a great admirer of Leon's intellectual activity. I can quote almost all his papers, from spark spectroscopy to the exterior ballistics of rockets, where he has a passion for analytic development, rather than numerical solutions. Then laterally, the motions of an artificial satellite, particularly in deriving the equations for determining the oblateness of the Earth. And I think his last, I don't know if it's your last paper, on the motion of a pendulum, in a satellite rotating the Earth. So he's been a productive scientist. And I'm also grateful to Pauline as a friend, and I don't think I would have achieved what little prominence I have in life without her constant advice. And although she's never been able to overcome her aversion to the cup that cheers, it's a feeling I forgive you for, Pauline. I'm tremendously pleased, to be here at the 50th wedding anniversary. And as I look back to these long bonds between our family and theirs, I hope it will continue. Lots of love to you both.
Any more? Dad?
Mother first.
No, you Mom, you go first? Daddy will say first. I can't even agree after 50 years. But she told him who was going to go first. And he listened again.
Anyway, I wasn't sure that I would be coherent, so I wrote out some notes, but I think I'm sober enough now, I'm fairly coherent, so I can tell you something. One, if someone had told me back in 1936 that 56 years later I would be in Baltimore, surrounded by friends and family on this occasion, I would have said, you're crazy. But in any case, it was in 1936 that I went to Arizona as a sickly kid, and let me admit, God has been good to me. I've recovered my health, my strength. I've been blessed with a wife who looks after me in every detail, and I've been blessed with 2 children, of whom we are both proud, and 3 grandchildren, of whom we are even desperately, I shouldn't say more proud, but we're proud and we love them very, very much. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am, and I speak for Pauline as well, when I see so many of you who have made a special effort to come here from various distances, from California, from Chicago, even from Baltimore. And among those are just friends whom we've made in Tucson, a former student and her husband who are now living in Baltimore, but a wide assortment of friends, a great many of which we made in our years in Tucson. But let me add something to this. Although today is the celebration of our 50th official union, let me tell you that our so-called affair goes back 55 years. You see, we had a whirlwind courtship for 5 years, namely 1937. And I'll tell you a few things about our courtship and the subsequent events. I'm going to hide nothing. We met in November of 1937 at a Jewish students' picnic at a canyon in the mountains near Tucson, known as Sabino Canyon, which will come up again in a little bit. And my friend Gerson Channon was president of the organization, and he said to me, "Who is that shy, retiring, coy, mousy wallflower standing there in the shade of that giant cactus?" I said, "I don't know." So we went over and we met Pauline. And let me tell you, those of you, and most of you I think, know my friend Nate Leachman. And it was at the same picnic that we met this shy, retiring, milquetoast type character, Nate. Well, I don't know what power I had, but from that point on, both of them were transformed, you see, and they became outward individuals instead of inward, shy characters. But then a fierce competition developed between Pauline and my friend Nate for my attention. For me, the big attraction about Nate was he had a car, which he lent me frequently. He had a phonograph and a stack of classical records. Pauline's big attraction, well, I don't have to tell you what Pauline's big attraction was, but Nate couldn't compete.
Keep it clean. Keep it clean.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, Pauline did win out. But now, even life with Pauline from that point on changed, and life for me from that point on changed, because my life was transformed. And even before we were married, my life became interesting, because all the interesting things seemingly happened via Pauline. And so, for example, it was in 1939 when Pauline was living in a girls' dormitory on campus in her senior year, and she was helping me, as Herbie Rubens, no, as one of the letters say from my former professor, in the basement of the physics building, in the laboratory there. She was helping me with some calculations. This was on a Sunday afternoon, and the campus cop walked by. And he saw the door open, so he entered and found us in the act of, honestly, calculations. Okay, but he accosted us and he said, "Are you married?" We said no. Then he said, "Then the young lady has to leave." I told him I have to stay because I had this important work to do. And he reported her immediately to the Dean of Women. And the next morning, Pauline was suspended from classes. Okay? And not only did she attract the attention of the Dean of Women, but the president of the university as well. Anyway, it was not until my physics and astronomy professors went to the dean and vouched for Pauline's honor and character and virtue that she is reinstated to class. But meanwhile, the dean didn't know how to handle this scandalous affair. So she wrote to the president for advice. How do you handle this affair? And the president put all of the university business aside to respond, because on the very next day, he wrote to the dean and he said, "These two young people were violating not one regulation of the university, but two. One, they were there on a Sunday afternoon, and secondly, they were there unchaperoned." Well, anyway, Pauline was reinstated to class, but she was already famous on the entire campus. Well, that was not the first incident with the Dean of Women, because when spring came, a fellow student in astronomy and myself took Pauline and her roommate on a little date to where, again, Sabino Canyon, except this time it was the evening. And she had to be back at the dormitory, I think it was 10 o'clock. But my astronomy friend said, none of us had a watch. He said, he can tell time by the stars. Well, he told time so well that we brought the girls back to the dormitory a full hour late. Well, the house mother was furious, and of course, Pauline was reported to the Dean of Women again. And this time she wasn't suspended from classes because she wasn't caught alone, you see, with me. But instead, she was campused for a full month. Let me tell you, these days they don't have that thing on modern campuses. But being campused for a month meant that she was not allowed to leave the confines of the campus. Not even to go to her mailbox at the local post office and things like that. So for a full month, Pauline was campused. But then, of course, she made history. Everybody knew about that wicked sinner. And naturally, of course, I had to marry her 4 years later. Anyway, in 1940, Pauline got her degree. She went back to New York to get a job and earn enough money for a dowry. I went to Pasadena, and 2 years later we were married, and started our wedded bliss in Pasadena. 2 years after that, we were married, and 2 years after we were married, we became a threesome with Bobby, and then in 46 we moved back to Tucson. And in 1952, Mimi made us a foursome. And life with Pauline continued to be very interesting. Let me tell you, it was never, ever dull. Sometimes a bissel meshuggah, but life with Pauline was never dull. And in fact, I'll tell a little story. I don't, you know, our home was a model of what we call shalom bayit, peace in the house. But you know, with two individuals, you can't always agree on everything. Well, we've had a minor disagreement one afternoon, and Pauline decided she needed a vacation from me. So she got in the car and drove to Phoenix to be with friends, and hardly has she gotten to Phoenix, the telephone rings, she's all tears and crying how much she misses us and how sorry she left and so forth. And 2 hours later, of course, she was back in Tucson. By that, we had totally forgotten what the tiff was about. But this was a typical tiff, on and off and so forth. But again, life with Pauline was always exciting, never dull, not for an instant. Well, I'm dragging on a little bit, but at this point I should refer to what I learned from the two most important men in our lives, my father and Pauline's father. At his 50th anniversary, I remember he got up and he said, among other things, the first 50 years were the hardest. I agree. But 10 years later, he got up and he said, the first 60 years were the hardest. I'll wait to see whether I agree with him. But then my own father. I remember once, I don't remember what the moment was, but I said, Papa, if you could do it over again, would you marry Mama? His eyes lit up. His mouth went into, his face went into a huge grin, and he went like this. So if you ask me if I had to do it over again, would I marry Pauline and have the same children?
Stand. Let's start because one of my nephews says, is this a bigger party than you had when you got married? And I had to laugh because I can't remember if we had music at the wedding. Did we, Molly? No. Someone play. Okay, I'm not going to tell you everything that happened with Leon and myself, but I will tell you about our plans for our wedding. He was at Caltech working and working and working, and so he said, okay, we're getting married in June. He said, I want a very small wedding. Your family, my family. And I said, not Frida, my best friend. And he said, okay, Frida. So we had to go, it had to be in Brooklyn. So his brother Joe could come if it wasn't too far from the house. So along came Mama, Molly, Kate, and myself, who did not know Brooklyn. But we went down a parkway, Eastern Parkway, and we looked at all the places that were available for weddings. Not all the time with a rabbi. What did you call those people who married you? Like a Jewish justice of peace. Anyhow, in one place, they would tell you they had twin cantors, and they were supposed to be on radio and very well known. And you paid according to the menu. And each menu, remember Molly, ended with mince and nuts. And we went down this whole street. And my sister Kate, who had the best sense of humor of the three of us, said, whatever we decide on, at least we'll have mince and nuts. And so we found a very young rabbi, and in his house he conducted the rabbis. Now in those days you never picked up the phone. I never called Leon once in the 2 years he was at Caltech, other than when Pearl Harbor was attacked. And so back and forth went these letters. My children don't want to inherit anything we have, but these letters that I have, all tied up with pink ribbons, that's all they want to lay their hands on those letters. And so I told Leon we found the rabbi. And he said, I don't want a young rabbi. At this stage, Rose came in and said, don't listen to him. We'll take care, settle it once and for all. And that's what happened. And we had this family wedding. Was it as important as today's party? It was very important. But today's party is even greater. Because our children did it. And all they asked was for our address book. And how pleased I am that all of you have come. Our friend Jules, from such a distance as La Jolla. Our friend June Alder, who always comes to all our simchas. Our friends Herbie and Elvira, who are really our brother and our sister. Pam, Jimmy, James, all of you, all the Blitzers. And most important of all, 1 week ago, a little 8.5-pound baby boy upset the apple cart. Mimi and Bobby and Alice went through all the dates. By this time, the baby should have arrived. I said to Leon, mark my word, this baby is going to arrive on Sunday and the bris will be on the 24th. I called Rose and she says, I'm praying for a girl. So I said, Rose, if you and Ann and Alice and Bert can come, at least it's for a reason, simcha, and how happy we are that it was a simcha. And at this point, I want to tell you how much I miss my sister Kate.
You know, I thanked, Pauline thanked our friends and our relatives for being here, but I didn't thank our children who are responsible for preparing all of this. Mimi, Marcia, Bobby, and David. We're ever so grateful. You have been the best we could expect, and we shall never forget it. And we have to thank them too for providing us with those 3 grandsons, number 1, number 2, and number 3. That's the way I call them, and that's the way I remember them, and I'll always love them. And how pleased we are to have our families here. My brothers, my sisters, Molly, Nikki, Joey,
Judy, Helen, the girls. And I'm going to, as Leon told you, I'm not easy. He always says I have something up my sleeve. Yes, this is going to be a surprise. You all know how upset I am that Bobby, Masha, and our adorable grandson Mark, whom we've given all our hopes and we've asked them to leave the baby here. They can go with their Michigassen, but we'll keep the baby. However, they haven't agreed. I see I haven't really made them change their mind. So at this time, I'd like to wish them well, happiness, and I'd like to make a toast to them, to the 3 of them. May they help Russia come out of whatever they're in. May they help more Jews get out. And may they really be very happy and healthy there.
Okay, now it's just time to have a lot more fun. We'll have some music and everybody can talk. And if you'd like, we can run the video again in the
one season following
they say that Helena is. Playing on the concertina down Palestine away.
Well, I'm sure.